Hello, Just Gem here and welcome, or indeed welcome back to my channel. Very early this morning I got a delivery of not one but two palettes, and they are the Neutrals duo, shall we call them, from Arttitude Cosmetics. Today I'm going to be focusing on Vintage Neutrals. Here it is here, and it's got a sleeve on it that's got a cutout. You can see the cutout says vintage there, and then that is the front of the palette itself. And then colour story wise, if I can open the lid, that is what the palette looks like on the inside. I have now done some swatches, so I hadn't done the swatches when I did this eye look. I did some quick mini swatches just so I could see what some of the shimmers looked like, because I know some of them are shifty, and maybe I'll insert those mini swatches of just the shimmers now, and then immediately afterwards I'm going to cut to the full set of swatches, which are still on my arm. It's quite handy, so there'll be a nice reference for when I do two more looks for you momentarily. But I haven't decided how I'm going to do this with the look I've currently got on my eyes. There's a good chance I'll insert an overlay of some description, and you'll just hear me talking not at length. It will be stuff that's relevant, but I wanted to, I don't know if the footage is necessarily going to be good enough to insert as a full thing, but I do want to show you when I'm applying those shadows, and I wanted to keep this on because I've now had these eyeshadows on for almost 12 hours, 10 and a half, 11 hours, so that's been able to give me a good longevity test on the shadows. I mean, granted, I've only used a few. I think I've used 2 shimmers and 3 mattes. So I'll zoom you in. So this is what my eyes look like after the amount of time I've just said, which I've forgotten already. So this eye is ever so slightly more hooded, so I think that's why you can see a bit more creasing than you can on this eye. I'm just going to close my eyes. So now I can't see the full extent of what you're seeing, but just to give you an idea of what the creasing looks like at this point. So I don't know what's going on lately, because I've noticed that I've had more creasing, and I don't know why that is. But then, having said that, I mean, I have had it on for a very long time. This eye looks to be okay. I can't really notice any creasing there. But on this eye, for some reason, it creases quite badly. Maybe next time I do a longevity test, I'll do like a bit of a check-in at various hours throughout the day, just to kind of see when that creasing starts to form. The most recent palette I've used where I've noticed this has been the Grackle Chat palette. So I don't know what's going on with this eye, or my lids in general, if they're especially oily at the moment. Who knows? This is the completed first look with a longevity test. I think generally it's held up quite well. What I would say is I'd use a NYX glitter glue for this, or do your eyes first, because I did get quite a bit of fallout, but I've managed to dust away quite a lot, but some of it did kind of land right in where your eyes crease. I've managed to sort of brush away quite a lot of that, and I think just over time some of it has just come off, but I did have quite a bit of fallout on my under eye when I applied this. Nothing that I couldn't tidy, but just something to bear in mind when you're using this palette. So belt and braces would be to use the NYX glitter glue and do your eyes first. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably insert the swatches here. I might have said I'd insert them earlier, but they're going to go here. And then I think, because I think you've seen this enough, I might zoom you out quickly first so you can take one final look, and I'm going to take this off and do my usual one look on each eye because I'm curious to try a few more of the shades inside the palette. So let me zoom you out. So this is just so you can see once more before I take it off. And I must say, so I was out with a friend of mine and she commented, she was very impressed with the shiftiness of the shade. She was, I was wearing my glasses today as well, so she could see it through my glasses. One of the shades I've got on, I think it's Glamour, was a particularly stunning shifty shade. Quite nice. So anyway, I'm going to stop jabbering on, and I'm going to, while you watch the swatches, I'm going to clean my eyes and reset them ready for 2 more looks. Enjoy. Here are the 16 shades of the Arttitude Cosmetics Vintage Neutrals palette, all swatched out. And I've got to say, I'm loving this colour story. I had kind of assumed that Urban would be my favourite, and I haven't dipped into Urban yet, but now that I've swatched this out, this could top Urban, which is surprising for me. Lovely creamy mattes. Apart from this one, I've closed the palette. I was meant to leave the palette open in front of me so I could look at the names of the shades. I want to say this green is called Timeless. I'm just going to check. This green is called Timeless, and that's quite dry but still pigmented, like it's swatched beautifully despite how dry it is. Thinking in my mind about the Cosmic Beauty shades, they are dry, they don't swatch well, but they do still apply beautifully. Whereas Timeless, when I swatched it, I did have this moment of, ooh, how's that gonna work? I might do a green look actually, focusing on Timeless, Classic and Fashion. So that's Timeless, that's Classic, and that's Fashion, just to be able to use these green shades and see how they perform. Originally, when I'd looked at the palette, I wasn't sure why we needed Timeless and Fashion, but they are very, very different. I think Timeless is much lighter than I thought it would be, and then Fashion is like a lovely deep green. So there's definitely a place for both of them. I'm actually quite impressed with the shade Muted. Normally I don't like shades like that, but I might be able to make that work for me. I don't necessarily think that this is one of those shades that I would skip over. I'm curious about Vintage, which is kind of like this mustard yellow shade. I'm always looking for yellows that work for me, so maybe I'll do like an orangey, yellowy look. These have swatched beautifully, really, really well, and I know that swatches don't tell the full story, but if swatches alone were anything to go by, this is, I mean, it's stunning. It really is. Yeah, definitely looking forward to using Vintage Neutrals a lot more. Please ignore how horrendous the makeup around my eyes now looks, but that's what happens when you do a full face and then you just wipe off the eyes in order to reapply your eyeshadow. One of the earliest videos I did was 5 looks with the Byredo palette, Mineralscapes, and on reflection I'm thinking to myself, how did I have the patience to do that? Because I think I did one on each eye, and then I did a complete look. But that must have been, it was hard going, all in one sitting as well. But I'm back, I've got a blank canvas again, and you know me. I mentioned it. I'm gonna do a monochromatic green look featuring the green shades that are in this palette because it just needs doing. And I'm trying to think of the shades that I've used already to think about what I could use on the other eye. But let's start with the green. Once again, apologising for my brushes because they're still not clean. Have I got the full arsenal of Refers? 1, 2, there's 3. I can't find my Refer number 3. It's around somewhere, but I might just avoid doing a look where I use my 3 and I'll lean into my Zoeva 230. Refer number 1, and I think I'm going to lay down Classic, which is the lightest green in the palette right there. And just while I've got the palette up, I'll probably do a gradient where I add in this and then deepen everything up with, so that's Timeless, and then deepen everything up with Fashion. And then I'll decide on what shimmer I want to put with those shades, but I'm leaning towards Antique despite the fact I've already used that. But yeah, let's try that. Let's see how we go. So as I think I mentioned already, I don't know why I do that. Oh, before we get started, for you ASMR lovers out there, that was a satisfying one, wasn't it? Yeah, so this arrived yes, I'm already in love with that. That is as it is in the pan on my lid. That's awesome. So I'm doing a bit of patting and then I will blend. So a bit of patting, bit of blending. So yeah, I think I said in my intro that these both arrived first thing this morning. So I got the email from Royal Mail saying that they were coming today, and I know that my postman, when there's a parcel involved, they come really, really early, which has its pros and its cons. I'm normally awake, but invariably I'm still in my pyjamas because I am. Especially because I'm not working at the moment. I've taken some days of annual leave. I am loving that green. That is nice. I'm taking off some annual leave and I wasn't going to be back on YouTube until next week, and then I thought, well, I've had a bit of a break last week. Well, I had a YouTube break last week, and then generally I've had a break. I've had a few days off, and then really if I'm not filming, I mean, my plan was always to film content this week. And I don't really know why my plan wasn't to upload, because I did have an upload rest last week. And now I'm going to go in with, I think, my 14 into Timeless, as I said, which is ever so slightly, well, quite a fair bit deeper. Let's see if I can go in a bit below. Yeah, see, that's nice. So they arrived super early this morning, and I thought to myself, well, I am going out, so this would be a really good opportunity to get stuck straight in, try out a look which I can then wear for the day, and it would be a great opportunity to test out the longevity, which I've been able to show you. And then I thought, if I haven't completely run out of steam and I've still got some energy when I come back, I might as well do my use of one look on each eye, just to demonstrate what you can do. So that way you're getting 3 looks plus a longevity test. I've got a Sigma switch here that I've had for the longest time. I'm just going in there, wiping off the excess pigment With this, I might put that right in the corner here. So this is something I've been doing a lot lately when it comes to deepening the outer V, which is literally just placing it on the edge and only bringing it in a little bit. I'm being a bit sloppy here, I'm not gonna lie, because I've faffed around. If you've been watching my stories from, well, it's today at the moment, but when you're seeing this it's tomorrow. But if you've been watching my stories, I've kind of been multitasking, doing my swatches, filming my swatches, being quite active on Insta because Unearthly have got a sale at the moment, but I've missed out on Just a Taste, which I'm really annoyed about. But I'm now asking people, in fact let me know. I know this is an Arttitude video, but if you have any Unearthly palettes that are your favourites, please let me know down in the comments, because I do want to take this opportunity while it's 20% off to try the brand, and I've got the opportunity to send it to a friend of mine in the States, so I don't have to pay what I'm saving in the palette on postage. I'm leaning towards Antique as the shimmer shade. I think Antique. I'm going to do Antique, and then I didn't do this earlier on today, but I'm just curious to see how this pops when I do put on some NYX glitter primer. Once again, I've managed to get it all over my lids. I think I've got lashes. I think I've got more on my lashes than I do on my lid. Whoops. Now my reference number 2, which I kept referring to as my reference number 1 in my last video, it's really not, it's my reference number 2. It's quite silvery. I might use my finger. I'll use my little finger because I've got a bit more control if I use my little finger. So whereas lately I've kind of done green and... Yep, fingers the way forward. Good lord. It's kind of in between silver and gold, but more towards the silver. Like this, it's very Slytherin-esque, this look. Yeah, see, this is amazing with a finger. And then I'll tidy it up with the brush. But that packs a punch. Back into my 14 and into Fashion, just so I can take some of the sharpness away. And then my Zoeva 230, again into Fashion, because we're just going to run that underneath. Connect it up, okay, wiping some of that excess off, and then I think I'll smudge out with Timeless because I think Classic is too light. Random thoughts just popped in. I need to do a Sainsbury's shop to arrive tomorrow. Watch me forget before I go to bed, and I'm not stopping to do it now. See, ordinarily what I'd do is I'd probably tidy this up with some concealer, which I guess I could still do, but I don't want to make my face look super cakey because obviously I've washed off my previous eye look, but I think you get the idea here. Going into my trusty Hourglass palette for my inner corner highlight, I think it would have worked to carry Antique right through, but I wanted a slightly different pop. It's quite nice, actually. I like that. So that's look number 1. Look number 2 is a bit trickier. Maybe if I think about what shimmers I want to use. If I've used Glamour and Antique twice, I do want to use Retrograde. How can I use Retrograde? I don't know if it would be a bit weird to put Vibes through the crease deepen things up with Nostalgia and use Retrograde. Just me want to use Retrograde. I'm going to try that. It's makeup. It's made to be experimented with. If it looks awful, it looks awful. But I think most palettes are curated with the idea that most shades will go together. Whether I've somehow managed to pick a combination that's not going to work at all, highly likely, but we're going to try it. I haven't used Vibes yet, so let's use Vibes. You could very easily do a sunset look actually using Vibes, Chic, Vintage and Nostalgia. Yep, that's pretty pink. That's pretty true to how it is in the pan. I don't really reach much for pink eyeshadows, which is quite unusual because for someone who loves purple so much, I mean, pink it's purple adjacent, isn't it? So you'd think I'd like pink a bit more than I do. Not that I dislike pink, it's just not a shade I reach for very often. And I should show you these shades, shouldn't I? So Vibes, that's what I've just put on. And now I'm going to deepen things up with Nostalgia, and that's the shimmer I'm going to attempt to pair with them. So as I say, who knows? Who knows? See, already now I've laid that down. I just think Retrograde's going to be too dark for this look. I'd be very curious to know how other people use the shade Retrograde. It's annoying me that this lid is ever... It's not much... I don't think it's noticeably more hooded. Well, I mean it is because I've noticed. It's probably not as bad as I think because I'm only using 2 shades. Well, 2 matte shades on my lid. I am carrying this in a bit further than I did the deepest green on that side, just to give a bit of depth across the whole eye. NYX glitter glue again. That's a very creamy, soft shimmer, this Retrograde shade. I'm not convinced, but I'm committing to it. Oh, actually, that works. This is chunky. This is a chunky shade. So I would 100... I mean, you can smooth it out. I don't know if you could see the chunk when I first deposited it. But this shade... 100% I would say use an adhesive of some description just to help with fallout, because I think if I hadn't have done that it would be all over my cheek right now. Dare I say it, I've just realised I've done green and purple. I mean, it can't be helped. If I'm trying to demonstrate as many of the shades as possible, it's kind of inevitable. But I am actually loving this. That looks much better than I thought it would. I should have trusted the process, and I should have trusted that Rooks would indeed have put combinations in there that would just work together. Sometimes I do put 2 shimmers on my lid, but I think for these looks a one and done is pretty effective. I want a bit more of that purple, so I've just picked it up and I'm running it over the top because I want you to be able to see it a bit more. For my inner corner, I'm going to use Glamour. I do remember that being chunky, and I know I've used that before, but we're doing it anyway. This is a chunky shade. I hope this is going to work. Yeah, it does. Jump the gun there. Let's finish this off. Ooh, Running Nostalgia underneath. I'm going to tidy these up. Bit of mascara, bit of liner, and then I'll come back and give you my first impressions. I have zoomed you right in so that you can see both looks. So this is the green side. I was about to say green monochromatic look, but it's got big massive silver flash on it, so it's not monochromatic, but you know what I mean. And then this purpley side, which looking at it now kind of reminds me of the purple look that I did using Nomad Haunted Europe. But I think I had more purple on the lid. It's got similar vibes, it's got that aesthetic to it. But yeah, green heavy look, purple heavy look. I have zoomed you back out again. Do you have a favourite side? I mean, I don't know which one is my favourite because purple and green are obviously in my top two colours that I love to use. And I don't know, maybe that's why I think I mentioned during my swatch footage that this might trump Urban, but then I don't know because that's very purple, blue, heavy. I don't know, we'll see when I come to use Urban, but I suspect I'm going to like Vintage more. I wonder if Vintage is going to end up being more versatile. So thinking about the look that I had today, it was a bit more sort of pinky, goldy vibes. Then I've got some green, silver vibes. Then I've got some grungy purple vibes. I think for a nice little 16 pan palette, it's a very cohesive and versatile colour story. I think there's a lot that you can do with that, and I can do my usual thing where I kind of maybe do some purple and some gold on the top, and then I go underneath with a green because I love to do that. You can do a sunset look if you want to. The only reason I didn't do one is because I just did one with Gourmand Girls, but as I mentioned, you can go into chic vibes, vintage and nostalgia, and you could get a really nice sunsetty look using those. There's 16 pans, 5 of which are shimmers, and I wonder if I'd have liked one more shimmer, one less matte. But then looking at these, I don't know what matte I would subtract to add a shimmer, because even Muted, which is normally like the lightest shade in that, which is normally the one I would axe, because of how pigmented it swatched on my arm, I'm intrigued by that shade. So I don't know if I would axe that in favour of an additional shimmer. I kind of feel like Muted belongs. I think it does. Love the formula. I've only ever tried one other Arttitude Cosmetics palette, and that was Metamorphosis, and I love Metamorphosis. That is one of the palettes that I find myself going back to repeatedly. I've really enjoyed that, and the mattes in here, as I mentioned, I mean, they swatch beautifully, but they also apply beautifully on the lid, and they blend really, really well. And this is me who's, I mean, I'm getting better at blending. I think the more you do it, you learn little tips and tricks and stuff along the way. So I am getting better. Even I can manage to get a gradient going. Creamy, apart from Timeless, which has some dryness to it. I think that was the only one that felt particularly dry to the touch, but still applies beautifully. No skipping, no patchiness, nothing at all, even in the swatch. And that's where it's different to Cosmic. Like I've mentioned that before. They apply beautifully on the eyes, but when you're swatching them there will be some skippage. So I do wonder if other people generally experience a bit of skippage when they're applying them to the eyes. I'd be curious. So if you've got some cosmic palettes and you've noticed that the mattes are a bit drier, how do you find them when you're applying them on the eye? Very curious. But yeah, these are creamy, bar timeless, beautiful shades. Would I change anything? I don't think so. Like I think every shade belongs, every shade is part of that vintage colour story. And one thing that really impressed me about Arttitude is the pastel shades in there still popped on my skin tone. And like Classic was a beautiful minty green. Loved it. Thought it was great. I'll be digging into this some more, and it will be in a roundup, and I'll let you know if there are any issues that I should come across. I think because I've been having issues with creasing with other palettes, I think I need to experiment more with my eyeshadow base. So again, a bit of a shout out if you've got any primer recommendations, eyeshadow primer recommendations. I'd love to hear them, because though it's been working for me pretty much all year, all of a sudden I'm getting creasing when I'm using that Be Perfect priming primer. So at the moment, no complaints whatsoever. Can't fault it at the moment, but let me play with it some more and come back to you in a good few months' time, and I'll give you an update then. But yeah, for a first impressions, impressed. Well done to Rooks, I think, for this palette. And I think especially because I've been watching the whole, like the saga of the palettes just arriving late, and Rooks obviously being distraught because she had them on pre-order. But the thing is, I mean, she was very transparent from the beginning about the issues that were occurring, and I don't think she was the only person affected by delays of imports coming into Europe. But she was pulling her hair out, God bless her, stressing that she wasn't going to be able to get these palettes to us as quickly as she had hoped. And I'd say it's been worth the wait. I've really liked sort of playing with that. I've enjoyed doing 3 looks, 1 this morning and then 2 later on. Time permitting, I'm going to try and do that going forward. So maybe when I get a palette, dive in, do a look to test the longevity, film that, show it to you guys, and then do 2 further looks, 1 on each eye, like this. Anyway, I'm going to stop there because it's after 10 o'clock now. I think I want a cup of tea, watch the latest episode of EastEnders, wash my face, obviously, and then go to bed, because it's been quite a long day. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope you found this video useful. If you have, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And hopefully I'll see you again in the video in the not too distant future. Take care. Bye. 13, 14, 15, 16. 3 is my pointy. Where's my pointy?